What's up, Scyushi Squad? We back in some more Trove, and today we're going to be doing a tier list, my own personal tier list of all the classes in Trove. Now, I want to be very clear about this. This is not, these are the best classes in the game, and all these other ones that I rate terrible or poop or anything like that. No, no, no. This is quite literally my own personal favorite classes in the game. After playing this game for well over 5 years now, I can distinctly tell you which classes I enjoy, which classes I don't. Now, a lot of these characters I may or may not have spent more time with, depending on their efficiency, their coolness sake. Like Neon Ninja, for example, is one of the fastest farming classes in the game, but those of you that have been with the channel for a long enough time know that even though I played Neon Ninja for a very, very long time for efficiency's sake, I finally, like, a while back already ended up swapping off of him just because his gameplay style isn't my favorite. But I'm not trying to get ahead of myself. I just thought it would be kind of a fun, interesting video, just because we do already have class tutorials for 2020. I'm still missing a couple individual class tutorials for 2020, but I do already have a couple individual ones and then one big one that refers to all the classes. There's already a link in the description if you guys are interested in checking that out. Now, before we get started with the video itself, I gotta let you guys know, if you're new to Trove, you can use that sign up link that's down in the description, and then anything you buy out of the cash shop, I will end up making a percentage of that sale. It's an awesome way you can support me. I can't stress enough how cool it is that you could just be doing things that you would otherwise be doing in the game anyway, like just buying stuff, and it sincerely helps me pay the bills and everything. And I just want to give a huge shout out to GameAgo for this life-changing opportunity, and for you folks watching at home who have actually gone through with it, because it sincerely helps. Thank you very much. So without further ado, let's get into it. I guess rather than going through like, oh, this one's good, this one's bad, like it's not like I have a full list here of which ones that I think are the best characters or not. So as usual, we'll kind of go through them in linear order. The Knight, honestly speaking, whoopsie daisy, I'm in an invisible costume. Because I like doing, I need screenshots of mounts and stuff like that. This is, you know, the Knight is not really my favorite. I wouldn't say that he is my least favorite, but he definitely isn't one of my favorite characters. I feel personally like the Knight, I'm just trying to get away from people. I feel personally like the Knight needs to get an overhaul, visually more so than gameplay. His gameplay is all right. It's not like it's awful or anything, but you know, the tennis racket I think is an appropriate weapon for his costume, or just for the Knight in general, because that's basically what he does with his basic attack. You know, his right click, useless. His number one, only useful once you get his classroom ability, and his ultimate is pretty useless as well. Overall, it's not like he's a terrible character or anything, but he has never been my favorite. I personally would love to see him completely changed visually, so that rather than looking like a teapot, he actually looks like some sort of a hero. I think that would be awesome. Pirate Captain, not awful, not great. I actually really like Pirate Captain. I don't really play him that much, but I think that he is a very cool character, and the fact that most of his abilities are actually very useful. Once upon a time, when they were first hinting that we were going to get a pirate character, one of the things that myself and others thought was going to happen is we thought that your left click attack was going to end up being a melee attack similar to the Knight, and then your right click attack could end up being a blunderbuss or a ranged weapon or something like that. Trove still hasn't had a character that does the whole melee and ranged thing. I mean, I guess Vanguard and Boomeranger kind of, but I mean, rather than using an ult that completely changes their playstyle, I think it would still be really cool if it was just tied to different clicks, different, you know, left or right trigger, whatever, you know. But the funny thing about the Pirate Captain, and one of the things you guys may or may not have noticed in Trove in general, is that ranged attacks can end up being really, really janky. The reason why the ranged attacks for the Pirate Captain don't like they actually register like 99% of the time is because the VFX that you see in front of you, consider it a really long melee attack. For whatever reason, the game just calculates it a lot better. I would actually say that the Draco's Flame is probably the same code that we have for the Pirate Captain's attack, except the flame being constant, whereas the Pirate Captain... Anyways, I don't mean to digress. Pirate Captain, I love him. I think he's great. I've always really liked him. He's got some of the best costumes in the game. He's also a shrimp. Like, he's super duper short. Moving on to Ice Sage, not my favorite. I've always liked the Ice Sage's, like, the abilities of the Ice Sage I always liked. I like the idea of the Ice Sage, I guess I'll say. But as far as the class is concerned, I always found the Ice Sage to be extremely boring. Like, it's not really one of my favorites. I just liked the fact that it's so heavily themed towards an element, and none of the other Trove classes really are, you know? I mean, Draco's kind of got fire going for it. But with Ice Sage, it encompasses everything about ice. Like, even all of the abilities and stuff. Like, the shield makes sense for ice, even though it kind of is weird. But freezing enemies, giant icicles or pinatas when you're using this costume, and shooting ice, and having all the enemies have like slowdown effect once you end up triggering those abilities, I just have always thought was a really cool idea. Personally, though, Ice Sage is not really my favorite. It's not like he's awful. Like, I don't really put him as low tier as the Knight, but I mean, he's okay, or she, whatever. I mean, they're block characters, so shut up. Shadowhunter, obviously you guys know this is S tier for me. Like, I love Shadowhunter. Shadowhunter's style is my favorite. Shadowhunter is my favorite class in the game. Why don't I use him? Because he's inefficient. He sucks. He's old. He's dated in content. Like, Shadowhunter needs a rework really, really bad, especially considering that Shadowhunter is still, to this day, I would argue, one of the most popular classes in the game. You know, amongst everybody that plays the game, everyone, I think all of us can agree that the Shadowhunter is awesome. And most of all, it's because of his costume ability. I still think that it is the absolute, like, it's a game changer, isn't it? It's the best costume ability in the game just because it takes a character that is otherwise useless and then ends up making them actually something worthwhile. Now, the problem is that Shadowhunter can end up being really, really good and really decent for mid-tier, but as soon as you get to that end game, his damage just falls off like super duper hard. Like, literally, I'm telling any of you Shadowhunter mains out there that are, you know, at a decent enough power rank, if you just take all your gems and whatever gear you can salvage and swap it over to the Neon Ninja, you will literally just be doing the same. Like, you'll just be stronger. Just outright. I remember I was so frustrated when I discovered that years and years and years ago, where I was testing it out in Shadow Towers. I remember very, very vividly where I wanted to main Shadowhunter, and then I literally swapped all my gear over to Neon Ninja, and then I was just better. Like, that's it. Whatever, man. But Shadowhunter is still one of my favorite. I don't really like his snare. I think that needs to have a lot of work. Generally speaking, though, he just needs to have his damage increased, or make it so that his shots phase through enemies. His ultimate ability is broken, but I think that if it had a reduced ultimate cooldown, so that you could essentially end up using the ability every dungeon, or maybe they could do something a little more complex, like every time you snare an enemy or something, it reduces the cooldown of your abilities so that this ability actually has some purpose. I don't know. I mean, there's plenty of other things that they could do with it. Fey Trickster. Moving on. I've always hated the Fey Trickster. Like, Fey Trickster is the bane of my existence, guys. I hate this character. Like, I don't care for fairy characters in general, but just, like, it's slow, it's clunky. I know that there's Fey mains out there that are gonna get frustrated, but it's like, what can I say? For me personally, I hate the Fey Trickster. It's boring, it's stupid. I just don't like it, okay? Candy Barb, however, is kind of in the middle for me, kind of a mid-tier, where I think that he's a really cool character, and he definitely starts out really good. He has some fantastic costumes, but as soon as you get to his gameplay late game, like, I can't say that I've put in like hundreds and thousands of hours with this guy compared to the other characters in the game, just because, not necessarily, again, I don't want to necessarily be saying that I'm talking about like the reason I don't really fully like this guy is because his damage falls off or something like that. It's most of all that his playstyle is a little bit slow, but stylistically I love the Candy Barb. He's kind of, he's mid-tier. Neon Ninja, I mean, like, that's the thing. I hold Neon Ninja in a lot higher in my tier list than I want to give it credit, just because I did enjoy my time with this character, just because Gotta Go Fast is a fun gameplay style. But Neon Ninja never really was super duper fun gameplay wise for me. Like backflipping all the time and never being able to look where you're going, always having to charge your 3 shurikens and stuff. Like I prefer characters where you just bang, you're in the dungeon and you're doing max damage already, which is probably why I use the Vanguard more so than the Neon Ninja, even though Neon Ninja technically is way faster and efficiency, you know, obviously makes a big difference over time with Trove. But now that I'm at the end game and don't really need anything, I don't have to use the Neon Ninja. He's still a great character, and definitely, I don't know, I guess A rank. I mean, as if I'm pulling out like A and S tier for certain characters and not talking about all the others. I don't know. I'm just, basically this video and tier list is me just giving my personal preference towards any of the characters. Gunslinger, I think, Gunslinger, I like it more so at the beginning of the game. I have very fond memories of when I was in the early days of Trove and playing as the Gunslinger and learning all his abilities and stuff like that. But now, like, after so many years of playing the game and so many people always talking about how Gunslinger is kind of like the standard for endgame damage, it's like I don't really have that much playtime with him just because, like, for endgame content, just because I don't really care, you know? Like, I play the characters that I enjoy. Now, that said, I still love the Gunslinger, and I think the big reason why I have such humble feelings for the guy is because of the hot dog costume. Because that was, you know, back in the day, I am the hot dog. That was, like, the original meme of the channel for, like, old subscribers. And it just kind of ended up catching on. And I always thought it was hilarious because this hot dog costume was actually based off of another content creator called Dunmeyer that the Trove developers knew personally and gave a lot of perks, even though I was creating better content and completely hijacked his costume. Anyways, moving on. Draco. Absolutely love him. Draco still is one of my favorite characters. Draco was my favorite back in the day when the game pretty much first came out. I still distinctly remember when I went to a class changer and then I was like, holy crap, there's another character that I already have right here. And then he also did fire. Like, fire is one of my favorite things in video games. Any of you guys check out my Genshin Impact series, you know that I desperately want to have the fire character that is in that game, but I haven't had any luck. I'm not trying to sell you. Draco, though, I mean, he's badass. Like, he has an ultimate that turns him into a dragon. He's got some great costumes. He sincerely does. The only complaint that I would have about Draco is that his fire VFX, those still looks great for anybody that's just tuning into the game or anything like that. I feel like his fire VFX are way too dated. There has been a lot of other either costumes or mounts or lots of other things have come into the game where the video effects of them has been completely overhauled, and these fire VFX have been completely obliterated. This is what the old fire video effects used to be from torches, and then they ended up kind of dumbing that down to what you actually see over here. This is kind of the more fancy video effects, and I would love to see something a little bit more HD, I guess, for the Draco, but obviously they're not going to end up spending that much time because then they would have to do it retroactively for all of the Draco's other costumes, right? Boomeranger, honestly speaking, guys, I have a very soft spot for Boomeranger. I love this guy. He's so fun. He's one of the funnest characters in the game. I just wish that he actually didn't suck. You know, like, seriously, his role is fantastic. The references to Zelda and Mario are just insane. And I'm a big time Nintendo fan. So I loved the Boomeranger when he came out. The Boom Boom Boomeranger's big bomb was awesome because at first when it came out in the game, believe it or not, you could use it to blast into dungeons, and then they changed that. But I've always really liked this guy. It inspired one of my probably my biggest starting mod pack where I had the entire Link costume. Like, I have like multiple Link and Zelda related costumes to the Boomeranger, and that was like one of my big mods back in the day. You know, I don't really do modding anymore because honestly I don't have the patience nor time for it, most of all the patience. But I'm very, very proud of that mod that I ended up making for this guy. And I'm not trying to sell you on that either. I'm just trying to say that I have a lot of fond memories, and I just really, really like the Boomeranger. I remember when he first came out, like, it wasn't as big of a deal. People didn't care as much, but I cared. I really liked him. And I would love to see him get an overhaul so that he ends up being something that can actually be viable for endgame again as well. Tomb Raider obviously has always been one of my favorite characters, and I am so happy that they ended up overhauling him and doing so very eloquently, because Tomb Raider now is actually like top tier for like just damage and stuff, and I love the fact that I can use this guy for just delves and stuff like that and just have a good time with it. Obviously he's not as efficient as some of the other characters, but who cares? It's all about playing the characters that you enjoy, and I cannot stress that enough, because lots of people are always asking, which character should I play in Trove? Play the character that you enjoy, dummy, because otherwise, if you're trying to play a character for efficiency's sake, you're gonna get bored. Sincerely, like that's what I was doing with the Neon Ninja, and guess what? I was getting super duper bored with the game because I was playing a character that I didn't enjoy as much as another character. So now I just kind of do what I do, you know? I like how this entire video too is basically, oh, this character's awesome, and then maybe like a couple of them that aren't, whereas there's only like maybe one or two that are kind of in the middle. Like it's just, I don't know, that's just my personality, okay? So deal with it. This also, I want to point out, okay, this is a modded costume. It is in the game's code. We did see this costume in the trailer for the Delves update, and then one of the developers must have forgot to actually put this costume into the game, unfortunately. But somebody ended up ripping it out of the game and throwing it onto Steam Workshop, and then a friend of mine converted it for, I don't use Steam Workshop, I use like another thing. Revenant. Where do I begin? Revenant's not really my favorite. I thought he was going to be a lot cooler than he ended up being, you know? Like, I remember... Do I not... Oh, God. I don't have a spear on him. I must have accidentally loot collected it. Damn it. Oh, well. Revenant's not really my favorite. I think that he's cool just because of how buff he is. You know, he's a really, really strong, tanky guy. But he never really, like, his gameplay style I always found to be horrifically boring, and I really wish that that wasn't the case. Like, even his attack animation, I mean, I guess it makes a little bit more sense than a character like Lunar Lancer, and we'll talk about that guy in a bit. But the shield bash and stuff, like, it makes sense for the character, but it wasn't really the funnest gameplay. I do like his ult, though. His ult's very, very pretty. But we'll move on from him. He's kind of less than middle tier for me. Like, Candy Barb is higher than Revenant for me. I remember there was a lot of hype around when Revenant came out, but honestly speaking, I think there was more hype around Tomb Raider. Revenant was just kind of, Lunar Lancer. I guess he's pretty high on my list, honestly speaking, because Lunar Lancer was hella fun when he first came out. I literally, like, because of his grappling hook, which is pretty useless ability, I guess, if you have enough jump. But I ended up actually constructing this city over here. We're in Team Pixel 5, by the way. And I ended up constructing this kind of city specifically because the Lunar Lancer could grip around all over the place. And I even had a costume for the Lunar Lancer where he ended up becoming Spider-Man. Like, I ended up having a mod for that. But I made sure to make it so that you could navigate this whole city with 2 jump. And I guess this was, in a way, this was kind of like... this was before PvP arenas ended up existing and stuff, so I guess in a way this was my way of learning map building and stuff. And I mean, you can see the details are pretty barren and basic, but I mean, I liked the fact that you could climb through all these buildings and stuff. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. As far as the Lunar Lancer's gameplay, like just for normal dungeoning and stuff like that, nah. I don't like it. You're basically just spamming your number 1 all the time. But I do think that the character himself is absolutely awesome. Even his ult, like, it's so cool. The fact that you have this giant spear come down and it had all these passive abilities that didn't really do anything. Like, I think it gives us more attack speed or more movement speed while we're in the range of it or something like that. I don't fully remember. You can check my old class guides. But needless to say, love Lunar Lancer as far as his style is concerned, and I love his gameplay, but I don't like his game loop for end game and stuff like that. So kind of torn between. Chloromancer is another one of these double-edged swords because I love the Chloromancer's style. I love every ability except for his ultimate ability. I think we all know that his ultimate ability is complete ass. But the one problem with Chloromancer is that he's useless. You know, like, I remember back in the day I was maining Chloromancer just because Chloromancer was so cool. Like, I love the style of the character and just kind of this I don't know, like this old emperor type of thing. Like even this is a great costume to highlight it. Like it just kind of feels very, I don't know, feels like a royal character, you know what I mean? And I always thought that the character was just really, really cool. And the fact that they hinted that it was going to end up being a healing character in the game was awesome as well. And then that kind of fell flat because Trove doesn't really have enough number calculations for stuff like that. Like it should be that the amount of damage that you do, or based on the amount of health that you do, you should do more healing or something. But even then, healing is just so useless in this game compared to end up having a character that takes damage. Like here, let me give you guys a little quick tip here why the Chloromancer sucks so much. This plant right here does consistent damage, and even if we have a second one, only one of them is doing damage to an enemy at a time. It doesn't stack. That's the reason why Chloromancer sucks, because there's no reason to put down more than one plant. And so all you would be doing is placing down your explosive plant over and over, right? Because that's the only one that's actually doing consistent damage. And then you just cast the spinner every now and then. I think if all of the spinners could actually do stacking damage, it would make more sense. I feel, in all honesty, that that is a bug that the devs severely overlooked when releasing the character, considering that the ultimate ability of this guy literally throws down like tons and tons of plants. Probably the laziest ultimate ability of the entire game, mind you. Like, I remember people speculating that he was going to end up having a transformation similar to Draco, where you would turn into like a giant Venus flytrap or something, or even that you would place one down that would like pull in enemies or like slap them or something. Like it could be so cool, you know? I love Chloromancer, but unfortunately he's like one of the worst characters in the game. Draco, or not Draco, Dino Tamer. So this is actually the opposite. Dino Tamer is one of those characters where I actually really like his game loop, but I don't really like his style as much. I feel in a lot of ways it was wasted potential, because back in the day, I like how this whole video just turned into me ranting about these specific classes and stuff, and just, hopefully you guys are still entertained by it. But anyways, I figured I'd just hit you up with some old Trove facts, right? So when Dino Tamer was first coming out, the funny thing is that I forget who the modder was. I'm sorry. I think they're actually still modding for Trove, but there was a modder that ended up changing the Lunar Lancer into kind of a raptor that had like these big fist claw things, right? And everyone got so excited at the idea that Trove would have an assassin type character that would just be all DPS, really fast and just punching and clawing and stuff. And that's where the, you know, the Dino Tamer or Dino Assassin or whatever, that's where the entire idea ended up coming from. And then the developers did capitalize on that hype, and they did give us a dinosaur themed character, but instead we got this Joker. Who's one of the most, like, Dino Tamer is extremely powerful. You can use him for speed farming to an insane degree, but he's probably one of the most underwhelming characters in the entire game, especially when you're using his default costumes. Like, obviously this one's pretty cool, but his default costumes, he's just a dude. Like, there is nothing unique about this guy. He's a gunslinger with one gun instead of two, basically. Also, he shoots needles out of his gun. Like, okay, whatever. The net, weird. The dino babies, useless because of how Trove works. And then the ultimate ability, which is pretty much what you're going to be spending the majority of your gameplay in if you're doing dungeons. Thus, I don't care about the style as much, just because I mean, look at this. It just looks like a mess, right? But the gameplay itself, I mean, it's a lot of fun. This character is extremely fast. He's definitely top tier. I love him, but I just wish that he was a lot cooler. Like, even his dino babies when they first came out were useless, and they're still pretty useless. They have their function. And then last but not least, the Vanguard. You guys already know I love the Vanguard. I think Vanguard's one of the best characters in the game. He's probably, and again, I'm not talking about like his damage or anything like that. Vanguard is probably one of the only characters that comes close to Shadowhunter for me. Tomb Raiser more so recently after his rework. Like, I always liked Tomb Raiser, but now I love Tomb Raiser. Vanguard was always a character that came out, and he basically replaced my main for like dungeon farming for now and forever. Like, I always end up going back to the good old Vanguard when I'm just doing dungeon farming and stuff like that. No matter which character I switch to, whether I swap to Shadowhunter or Neon Ninja for efficiency's sake, I always end up coming back to your boy Vanguard, just because his gameplay is extremely fun. Unfortunately, Vanguard doesn't really have the coolest costumes. There's a couple that are in the game that are pretty cool, but I feel like he needs to have a lot more love in the style department. But his gameplay is a lot of fun, and he's probably one of the most unique classes in the game just because of the fact that he can actually end up switching to ranged mode when you use your ultimate ability, which, I mean, you can use this guy pretty effectively for mid to end game tier so long as you're just going to U10 and stuff. But as soon as you go to Delves, I mean, obviously it just kind of falls flat on his face. But anyways, I don't mean to ramble more than I need to. I honestly didn't want this video to end up being as long as it turned out, but like I said, like I kind of just wanted to, like, I thought this was a good idea of, hey, this would be kind of fun to do. Let's just hit record and see where it takes us kind of thing. You know, I didn't do this with a script, and I didn't do it going in knowing like specifically what I would say about certain characters and stuff. So hopefully it wasn't too much of just a video of me rambling or anything like that. I hope that you guys found it insightful and entertaining, even if in a very small way, because certain characters obviously have a lot more depth to me personally than others do. Again, if you want class tutorials and talking about like which characters are like the strongest in the game and everything like that, that's not what this video is about. This video is about my favorites. And honestly speaking, I still, again, wish that a lot of the characters would end up getting a rework. But honestly speaking, I think that for Trove's future, it would be way better and more profitable, honestly speaking, if Game Ago would just continuously pump out new characters. Because back in the day, I forget what Trine Worlds promised us as far as the amount of characters we were going to get in the game. I know that working on a new character obviously takes a lot of work. Definitely a lot more work than a rework does, because for reworking certain characters, all they need is a couple numbers changed. I'm not like a game developer, so I'm not going to act like it's not complicated or anything, but how difficult is it to just boost a couple of the damage numbers for the Shadowhunter and see what happens, you know? Like, I don't know. Anyways, thanks for watching, gamers. Really appreciate it. Smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want to support the channel, and have yourselves a fantastic day. Stay norm and stay epic, gamers.